one question that I received on my The Last of Us chronological mode video was from Perlo. He said, do you think they'll ever give us a Tommy DLC? And that was a prevalent topic down in the comment section, and I thought that I'd address it here today. I mean, a Tommy DLC has been floating around, or a theory about a Tommy DLC, since the original release of The Last of Us 2. And it's been floating around because for The Last of Us 1, we got The Last of Us Left Behind, which was a story that followed Ellie and her best friend at the time. And it kind of filled in the gaps as to what Ellie was doing before we met her in The Last of Us Part 1. And it also kind of filled in the gaps of what she did to keep Joel alive and allow him to survive. It was pretty damn cool. It was pretty damn interesting, and it wasn't all that long. So a lot of people assumed, well, if we got a DLC for The Last of Us Part 1 like this that tied into the story, we probably will get a DLC in The Last of Us Part 2 that follows Tommy and even potentially Jesse. And so this would mean that we would follow and fill in the gaps where Tommy, we pick up as Tommy leaving Jackson, arriving in Seattle, making our way through Seattle, and getting to Abby at the pier. Maybe this also means that Jesse comes and we see how Jesse was able to find Tommy and how we make our way back. So it would have been something really cool to experience, something really cool to do. And then our DLC would end where Tommy gets ambushed by Abby. So of course that sounds awesome. That sounds enticing. Being able to play as one of the original characters from The Last of Us Part 1, a character that's so closely tied to Joel, we would have been able to see maybe conversations that he was having with himself about how he felt about Joel's death and how he could have done things differently. We could have seen an argument with him and his wife, because his wife really didn't get that much screen time in The Last of Us Part 2. So we could have seen how their relationship deteriorated. We could have seen conversations that he had with Jesse and how Jesse felt about Joel even more, and how Tommy maybe felt about being there for Ellie now that Joel is gone. You know, what he felt as a responsibility to his brother and to this girl that his brother took in as his family. So there's so much to be explored with a Tommy DLC, like so much to be explored. And at the time of The Last of Us Part 2's release, I could get behind the fact that we would maybe get something. But seeing how everything has gone, I feel that it's so unlikely that we'll ever get a Tommy DLC for The Last of Us Part 2. Even though the assets are there, even though the gameplay and the character model and everything could be there and it could be used. But if they haven't filmed anything yet, if they don't have those lines yet, if they don't have an idea of it yet, then there's probably no way that we're going to get it. And if we look at how everything kind of has happened since the release of The Last of Us Part 2, I mean, they made a TV show, they remastered the game. There's been many opportunities and many updates to this game where they could have released the DLC for it. When they released The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered, they could have included that DLC if it ever was to come out. They also canceled the factions mode because it was going to be too much to maintain. So they're taking resources away from The Last of Us Part 2. They're moving things around. You have Intergalactic, the Heretic Prophet that's being worked on now. You have another unannounced Naughty game that's being worked on right now. So where would they find the time to make this Tommy DLC? Some of you guys say, well, they had enough time to make the chronological mode. Yeah, but that was just rearranging of some things and there wasn't anything new added. And I don't want to be a party pooper or a negative person that's like, oh, we're not going to get it. But just looking at the timeline of events, it doesn't seem like we will. And then you have the interview that Neil Druckmann did when they were doing a documentary on the release of The Last of Us Part 2. And he goes on to say this here.
You know, we have written a story that takes place after Last of Us 2 that stars Tommy. And I hope one day we get to make it. And the headlines across the industry were like, Naughty Dog has outlined Last of Us Part 3. And that's actually wrong. It was always a small story. It was never like a full title. At the time, we had higher priorities at Naughty Dog, was like to fix our pipeline, to fix work-life balance issues. Just based on where we were, I didn't want to prioritize this story, so that story was shelved. And I still believe one day it will see the light of day. I don't know if it'll be a game or a show, TBD.
So with Druckmann basically saying that he did have something for Tommy, well, that gave people hope. But the fact that he doesn't know if it's going to be a TV show, if it's going to be a short story, if it's going to be in the game, you know, more than likely, to me, I took his interpretation of what he said as I know, like I had an idea, I thought about it, maybe was going to do it. I don't think I will anymore. You know what I'm saying? If anything, he'll release a short story, like a very short story, and he'll title it Tommy Day 1, Day 2, and then it'll be like just going through what he did and stuff like that. But a Tommy DLC for the PlayStation PlayStation 5 that can be played alongside of The Last of Us Part 2, it just seems something very unlikely, something that just they wouldn't put their resources in, no matter how much I personally would like to see that. I just don't think they care enough about the character. I don't think they care enough about, the relationship with Joel. I don't want to be negative again, but I feel that they've kind of distanced themselves a lot from like Joel, and Joel being, I don't know. I feel like if they gave a spotlight to Tommy, for some reason, I feel like they just wouldn't like the reception it would get. I think it would get a great reception. I think people would love it. They'd be like, fuck yeah, finally we get to play as Tommy. But I just don't think that they'd want the reception. And I don't know. I could be like completely off, but that's just my personal thinking, like my opinion. That's what I feel, So I wanted to answer that question because I see it on almost every The Last of Us video that I make. It's always the Tommy DLC. Where's the Tommy DLC? All we need is Tommy DLC. And I get it. I get the excitement for it. I want it as well. And if we could get it, I'd be one of the first to say, fuck yeah, let's do it. Let me play that. But it's a very hard thing to see actually coming into fruition. But what do you guys think?